Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. There comes a time in your life when you've got to stop blaming the heartbreak and start asking yourself why you kept choosing it. You've got to stop calling it bad luck in love and start calling it what it is: a mirror, a reflection, a result of who you were when you made that choice. Because hear me, you attract not what you want, you attract who you are. And if you are broken, you will bleed on everything you try to hold. You will sabotage the very thing you pray for. You will call chaos chemistry and mistake trauma bonding for passion. You will confuse feeling needed with feeling loved, and until you heal, your picker will stay broken. This is not a blame game. This is your awakening. See, I know you were taught to look for your other half, like wholeness comes from outside you, like somebody else is supposed to complete you. But listen, if you walk into love half healed, half knowing yourself, half confident, half stable, you're not looking for a partner. You're looking for a savior. You're looking for somebody to give you what you don't give yourself. And that's the trap, because no one, and I mean no one, is going to love you into healing. That's your job. They can support it, sure. But if you're not doing the work yourself, you'll drain them. You'll drain yourself. You'll lose them, or worse, lose you in the process. So let me ask you something real. Who were you before the pain, before they ghosted you, before they cheated, before they told you you were too much or not enough? Who were you before the world handed you disappointment, one betrayal at a time? Because that version of you, the one before the wounds, the one who laughed full belly, trusted with both hands, loved without fear, that's the version that chose from wholeness. That's the version that knew their worth. That's the version we're going back to. But listen, we don't go back to innocence. We go forward into wisdom. You don't have to unfeel your past. You just have to stop letting it sit in the driver's seat. Because too many of us are making forever decisions with broken compasses. We're choosing from fear of being alone instead of joy of being aligned. We're settling because we're tired, not because we're sure. We're clinging to the familiar pain instead of releasing it for unfamiliar peace. Let me be clear. Healing isn't sex. It's not some Instagram moment with candles and bubble baths. No. Healing is crying on the floor at 3 a.m. because you finally realized that they were never going to apologize. Healing is unfollowing the people who keep triggering you. It's sitting in silence when the loneliness comes and not running to someone who just wants your body, not your soul. Healing is making peace with the fact that closure might never come. It's realizing you were the lesson too. But on the other side of that, there's power, there's clarity, there's peace, there's God, there's a version of you that no longer begs to be chosen because you finally chose yourself. There's a version of you that walks away when peace is disturbed, not when you've been drained. There's a version of you that attracts from abundance, not from desperation. Let me tell you something about wholeness. Wholeness doesn't beg. Wholeness doesn't chase. Wholeness doesn't perform. Wholeness receives. Because when you're whole, you don't need someone to complete you. You need someone who matches you, someone who can meet you where you already are, not carry you where they think you should be. You start to attract differently when you love yourself deeply. You stop tolerating half efforts and almost. You stop chasing people who only text at midnight. You stop shrinking to be digestible because you're no longer starving for attention. You're nourished by your own self-respect. But the truth is, most people never get there because healing hurts more than pretending. Pretending you're fine, pretending they love you, pretending staying is strength. Let me ask you something raw. How long are you going to keep hurting yourself trying to heal someone else? How long will you wear your pain like armor and call it independence? How long will you ignore the voice of God that says, "My child, let it go. I have better for you, but I cannot bless what you won't release"? Let me talk to the ones who feel forgotten, who gave everything to someone who couldn't even give you honesty. Let me talk to the ones who feel too old, too damaged, too late. You're not too anything. You're exactly where you need to be to start. God doesn't need you perfect. He needs you present. He's not waiting on you to figure it all out. He's waiting on you to surrender, because you can't do God's part and He won't do yours. You've got to lay down the blame, lay down the guilt. Lay down the story that says you're unlovable and pick up the truth. You are worthy now. You are not your heartbreak. You are not your ex's opinion of you. You are not your childhood wound. You are not the one who always gets left. left. You are healing, you are growing, you are learning how to choose better because now you're becoming better. And the moment you stop settling for crumbs, you make room for the feast. Because when you are whole, you won't crave what broke you. You'll stop going back just because it's familiar. You'll stop entertaining temporary people when you're ready for permanent peace. And you will learn something sacred. Not everyone who comes into your life is meant to stay. Some came to teach you what not to accept. Some came to show you your own strength. Some came to break you open so God could rebuild you higher. Stop calling it a mistake. Start calling it preparation. Because now you know what love isn't, and that is the first step toward knowing what love is. Now you know what peace costs, and you are no longer willing to bargain with your sanity. Now you know what it feels like to lose yourself, and you've made a vow, never again. So no, you're not bitter, you're aware. No, you're not hard to love. You're just done begging for it. No, you're not too much. They were just not enough for your depth. And the moment you stop apologizing for your standards, your boundaries become gates, not walls. The right ones walk in, the wrong ones walk away. That's what healing does. It doesn't just change who you attract. It changes what you believe you deserve. And that's the shift. That's the breakthrough. That's the moment the heavens open and say, now you're ready. Now you're ready for a love that honors your soul. Now you're ready for friendships that don't require math. Now you're ready for a life that aligns with your truth. Because you've done the work. You've shed the dead skin. You've looked yourself in the mirror and didn't flinch. You've cried. You've prayed. You've walked away from what you thought you couldn't live without. And you live. Now you're no longer choosing out of emptiness. You're choosing out of overflow. And hear me, wholeness is magnetic. It's not loud. It doesn't need to prove. It simply is. It walks into a room and shifts the energy. It speaks with conviction. It loves with discernment. It gives without depleting. It walks away without crumbling. That's the version of you the world is waiting for. Not the one stuck in heartbreak, the one rising from it. So heal before you choose, because the healed you makes better choices. The healed you doesn't fall for the same pattern. The healed you is no longer afraid to be alone, because now you understand loneliness isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of growth. Let the silence grow you. Let the solitude reveal you. Let the pain cleanse you. Let the healing find you. Because when you are whole, you won't chase what's not meant for you. You'll attract what's aligned, what's divine, what's yours. Not because you begged for it, but because you became it. But here's what they don't tell you. Healing changes what you know. Where you once saw charm, you now see manipulation. Where you once mistook intensity for connection, now you recognize the storm behind the spark. Where you once believed effort was enough, now you understand alignment is everything. See, you're not just healing your heart, you're rewiring your instincts. You're learning that love is not supposed to feel like survival. It's not supposed to feel like a competition. It's not supposed to drain your joy just to maintain the peace. Love should not come with fear attached to its spine. If you flinch when your phone rings, if you shrink when you speak your truth, if you feel more anxious than safe, that's not love. That's a wound dressed up in romance. And too many people are walking around calling their pain their preference, but preference should never be shaped by past trauma. It should come from presence, clarity, power. That's what healing gives you, the ability to pause before reacting, to reflect before attaching, to recognize the difference between being seen and being used. You stop asking, do they like, and start asking, do I feel peaceful around them? You stop asking, how do I make them stay? And start asking, do I even feel safe here? Because wholeness doesn't chase comfort, it creates it. And when you've healed, peace becomes non-negotiable. You're no longer addicted to potential. You're invested in reality. You don't need fireworks every day. You need consistency. You don't need grand gestures. You need emotional presence. Because you've come to understand a quiet love built on truth is louder than a loud love built on lies. And as you grow, you start to see the signs sooner. That subtle shift in tone, that delayed response, that contradiction between word and action. You don't explain it away anymore. You observe. You don't make excuses anymore. You make exits, not because you're bitter, because you're finally loyal to yourself. You don't abandon your intuition just to avoid being alone. You don't betray your own boundaries just to keep the illusion alive. Because healing teaches you this: you can miss someone and still know they're not good for you. You can love someone deeply and still walk away with your dignity intact. That's the maturity healing gives. And when that maturity kicks in, you no longer want a love that costs you your voice. You no longer feel butterflies around people who make you anxious. You don't need chaos to feel alive. You're not addicted to adrenaline anymore. You're anchored in calm. And let's talk about loneliness for a second, because healing forces you to face it. There will be seasons where the silence feels unbearable, where you stare at the door you just closed and wonder if you made a mistake, where you question your standards because the weight is getting heavy. But hear this: the loneliness of healing is lighter than the loneliness of settling. There's a loneliness that grows you and a loneliness that drains you. You will have to choose, because not everyone who sits beside you brings peace. Not every touch is healing. Not every I love you means security. And when you've healed, you know how to read between the lines. You see that time isn't love, effort isn't always respect. History doesn't mean compatibility. You've learned to let go of people you never thought you could. And you've made peace with the fact that not every apology comes in words. Sometimes closure comes when you finally stop checking the door. Sometimes healing is silent. It's in the way you smile again without effort. It's in the way you sleep through the night. It's in the way you don't explain your worth anymore. You just live it. That's when you know you've crossed over. You're not just surviving heartbreak. You're becoming heartbreak-proof. Not because you won't feel again, but because next time you'll choose from your healed self. You'll recognize red flags without romanticizing them. You'll spot emotional unavailability even when it's dressed in affection. You'll say no with a clear heart and an even clearer mind. And you'll wait, not in desperation, but in confidence, because you know what's for you cannot miss you. You don't chase anymore. You attract, you align, you prepare, and that's what makes you unstoppable. Because when a healed heart meets purpose, when clarity partners with confidence, when peace becomes the standard, you're no longer moved by temporary attention. You're focused on lasting connection. Not everyone will understand this version of you. Not everyone will clap for the boundaries you've built. Some will say you've changed, and you have. You stopped breaking yourself to keep others whole. You stopped editing your truth for people who couldn't handle your. You stopped playing small in spaces that never saw your worth. You stopped waiting for permission to live fully, because healing is not just recovery, it's resurrection. You are not the same, and thank God for that, because now you walk differently, you speak differently, you love differently, with more intention, with more grace, with more discernment. You're not afraid of losing people. You're afraid of losing yourself again. And that shift, that holy shift, is everything. That's when you start magnetizing real love, the kind that's grounded in truth, not fantasy, the kind that sees you fully and doesn't flinch, the kind that says, I choose you, not because you're easy, but because you're real, because you did the hard thing. You didn't numb it. You didn't mask it. You didn't run to another warm body for a quick distraction. You sat in the ache. You faced the mirror. You healed. And now you're ready. Not for a savior, not for a project, but for a partner. Because when you're whole, love is not a rescue mission. It's a reunion of two people who've done the work, who choose each other. Not out of fear, but out of freedom. That's what's meant for you, and it's already on the way. There's a power that comes when you no longer need to convince anyone of your value. When you wake up and realize you've been giving away gold to people who were only looking for glitter. You stop shrinking in the hope someone will finally see you. You stop overgiving to feel enough. You stop measuring your worth by how long they stay. Because healed people don't beg for what already belongs to them. They don't chase love like it's a prize to be earned. They don't audition for roles in someone else's life. They don't play cool when their heart is burning with unmet needs. They speak, they claim, they walk, if they must. Because healing doesn't just give you peace, it gives you options. You see clearly who is choosing you out of alignment and who is showing up just to take. You spot energy leeches faster. You say goodbye with grace, not with guilt. You stop mistaking attention for intention. And when the wrong ones leave, you no longer collapse. You bless the exit, because anything that threatens your peace is not meant to stay. You've tasted silence and found strength inside it. You've seen what happens when you try to fix people who refuse to heal themselves. You've learned that chemistry without commitment is chaos. You don't need someone to fill your silence anymore. You've learned how to sit with it and hear your soul speak. Now, instead of what's wrong with me, you ask, what am I learning from them? Instead of why did they leave, you say, why did I stay? And that's a whole new level of self-respect. Because now, you take responsibility, not blame. You look at the role you played and you forgive yourself for what you didn't know then. You stop repeating patterns out of nostalgia. You stop romanticizing people who wouldn't even show up for you on your worst days. You stop hoping a broken situation will magically become healthy if you love it hard enough. Because now you know it's not supposed to be painful every day. It's not your job to teach someone how to treat you. The moment you believe you're worthy of softness, you'll stop calling sharp edges home. You'll stop saying yes when your spirit is screaming no. You'll stop lying to yourself in the name of loyalty, because loyalty without boundaries is self-betrayal. And you've done enough of that. Now you honor your own voice. You sit at the table you built. You no longer starve for scraps when you were made for the feast. That's what healing does. It rewrites your story. No longer the victim, no longer the fixer, no longer the chaser. Now you are the chooser, and the choices you make reflect that. You don't get caught in dead-end conversations. You don't keep entertaining people who confuse your consistency for weakness. You don't break yourself to keep others whole, because you finally understand your peace is too expensive to bargain with. You'd rather be alone in truth than together in illusion. And that shift, that sacred shift, that's the game changer. Because when you stop looking for love to rescue you, you start building a life so beautiful, it becomes a blessing to anyone invited into it. You create from fullness. You give from overflow. You connect with clarity. No more double messages. No more mixed signal. No more situations that drain more than they give. You're not afraid of being misunderstood anymore, because you're no longer willing to dim your light just to make someone else comfortable in your presence. You've worked too hard to unlearn your pain, to untangle your worth from your performance, to detach your identity from your relationship status. You fought your way out of self-doubt, out of insecurity, out of almost and not quite. Now you walk like someone who knows where they're going, because you've seen what staying stuck costs. You've seen what giving the wrong people access does. You've learned what silence can teach that noise never could. You no longer live for the text back. You no longer confuse breadcrumbing for affection. You no longer tolerate the kind of love that keeps you guessing. You want clarity, you want consistency, you want connection, not chaos, not confusion, not conditional attention. That's the result of healing. You begin to require what you once thought was too much to ask for. And the right people, they never make you feel guilty for having standards. They match your energy. They respect your boundaries. They admire your growth, because you've built a life where only the true can stay, where only the brave are welcome, where only the whole are allowed to hold your heart. And for the first time in a long time, you're not looking backward. You're not rereading old texts. You're not reminiscing over filtered memories. You're not trying to revive what God allowed to die. You are rooted in now, anchored in truth, focused on becoming. You've learned how to leave with grace, how to stay with intention, how to pause when necessary. You've become your own home. And when you become your own home, love becomes a choice, not a necessity. It's the cherry on top, not the bandage over a wound. It's not a search, it's an arrival. A meeting of two people who have done the work, who don't need each other, but choose each other every single day. And you're ready for that kind of love, because you've let go of what's not yours. You've released the timelines. You've forgiven the ones who didn't know how to love you right. You've stopped holding your breath, waiting for things to change. And now finally, you are breathing again, deep, whole, free. You're no longer walking into rooms asking, will they like me? You're walking in wondering, does this feel like peace? That's the difference. That's the reward. That's the result of doing the inner work no one clapped for. You built your life on solid ground. You planted seeds when no one was watching. You watered your soul in silence. And now the harvest is coming, not just in love, but in everything. Because healed people love differently. They work differently. They live differently. From intention, from strength, from wholeness. And the life that meets you on the other side of healing, it's worth everything you had to leave behind to get here. There is a moment in every healed person's journey where silence becomes sacred, not just quiet, but holy. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but full of answers. Because in that silence, you begin to hear what fear kept drowning out. You begin to feel what chaos kept numbing. You begin to recognize that peace was never supposed to be earned through suffering. It was your birthright all along. And when you touch that kind of stillness, that clarity, something shifts in your soul. You no longer rush into things just to escape discomfort. You no longer accept halfway presence and call it connection. You stop running from the void because you've made peace with the fact that the void isn't a punishment. It's preparation. Preparation for the kind of life that isn't built on impulse, but intention. Not on desperation, but discernment. And that's the word most people ignore, discernment. Because love without discernment is a trap. It makes you fall fast, commit early, and wake up months later wondering how you ended up tangled in something that never matched your spirit. But when you've done the work, when your vision isn't fogged by unhealed wounds, you see what's real before it wrecks you. You catch the inconsistencies early. You spot the self-serving smiles. You recognize when someone's energy feeds you or feeds on you. And instead of attaching yourself and trying to fix them, you release them with grace. Because healed people don't argue with red flags. They honor them. They respect what their nervous system is telling them. They don't override their gut for temporary comfort. Because that kind of comfort always comes with a cost. And if you've been through enough, you know exactly how expensive it is. So now, you don't chase highs. You don't live for the spark. You're not impressed by intensity without stability. You're looking for sustainability, for someone whose actions don't apologize for their words, for someone whose consistency builds a rhythm, not confusion, for someone whose presence feels like exhale, not suspense. That's the kind of love that lasts, the kind that doesn't require a performance, the kind that doesn't feel like you're walking on emotional eggshells just to stay close, because you've already lived through the roller coasters. You've been through the confusion wrapped in charm. You've tasted the sweet poison of someone who knew how to say all the right things, but never showed up with the right behavior. And now you're done with that. You're not just healing for love, you're healing for legacy. Because how you love sets the tone for what you build. If you build your life on emotional crumbs, everything else follows that pattern. You play small in business. You second guess in friendships. You accept less in every room you enter. But when you heal, you raise the standard, not just in romance, in everything. You start treating your energy like currency. You spend it where there's return. You invest it where there's growth. You protect it from what only drains and depletes. Because you finally believe this truth. You are the prize. And when you walk like you're the prize, the wrong ones fall away. Not because you're unlovable, but because they were never ready to rise to your level. Now you don't beg to be seen. You don't twist yourself into someone's idea of enough. You don't explain your softness or your standards. You let your life speak for itself. Because when you're whole, your energy introduces you long before your words ever do. You walk into rooms with peace in your posture. You command respect without saying a word. You move like someone who knows their worth isn't negotiable. And that energy, it's rare. It attracts the ones who see you clearly. It repels the ones who only want to use you. It filters out the noise because clarity is a magnet and confusion is a repellent. And when your spirit is clear, your path becomes undeniable. That's when you start building something solid, not just a relationship, but a vision. You stop fantasizing about someone saving you from your own life, and you start building a life you're proud of, with or without anyone clapping. You build your health, you protect your peace, you expand your mind, you nurture your gift, and suddenly, you're not waiting for love to feel alive anymore. You're already living. That's the power of inner healing. It sets your life in motion. You no longer delay your joy until someone calls you the one. You no longer hold your breath hoping someone texts back. You no longer mold yourself into a shape that fits their emptiness, because you're full now. And from that fullness, everything changes. Your standards are no longer just preferences. They are boundaries rooted in self-worth. You don't just want someone to love you. You want someone to love with you, to grow with you, to rise with you. You're not looking for a role to play. You're ready for partnership, real partnership, built on shared values, not just shared feelings, built on mutual direction, not just momentary desire, because love without direction is just distraction, and you've had enough of that. So now, you protect your peace the way a lion protects its cubs. You don't argue about your worth anymore. You embody. You don't settle to avoid loneliness. You use loneliness as a signal, not a sentence. And when you do connect again, it will be from your overflow, not your lack, because you finally realized the right one won't fix you. They will fit you into a life you already love, into a purpose that's already in motion, into a peace that they don't have to perform to maintain. Never too late, never too complicated. You were simply in the process of becoming, and now that becoming has brought you here, to wholeness, to power, to peace, and everything that's meant for you is already on its way. There's a version of your life that doesn't exist yet, not because it's impossible, but because it requires a healed you to unlock it. A version where your decisions are not made from desperation, where your boundaries don't come from fear, but from reverence, where your relationships aren't designed for survival, but for elevation. But here's the key, that version is not waiting for time, it's waiting for alignment, because time alone doesn't heal, it's what you do with that time. You can sit in the same pain for years and call it healing, but until you confront it, feel it, name it, and disarm it, it will just keep living under new faces, new habits, new cycles. Healing isn't just a quiet season. It's a courageous decision to stop saying, this is just how I am, and start saying, this is who I'm becoming. Because you are not your triggers. You are not your patterns. You are not defined by how long you stayed in the wrong place. You are defined by what you do now that you know better. And the most dangerous lie you can tell yourself is that healing can wait. No, healing doesn't happen someday. It starts the day you say, I deserve more than this, more than emotional roller coasters, more than halfway love, more than cycles dressed as connections. Because when you get honest, really honest, you realize it was never about them. It was about your relationship with yourself, your silence when they crossed the line, your excuses when they broke your trust, your belief that love required pain. And that's the hard truth. Sometimes we accept the bare minimum because we've never seen what the maximum looks like. But the moment you raise your standard, everything shifts. Not because life suddenly gets easier, but because you do. You get stronger, you get clearer, you get unapologetic. You stop letting people access you who haven't earned the privilege. You stop trying to fix people who benefit from staying broken. You stop over-explaining to people committed to misunderstanding you, because when you've done the work, Peace becomes your compass, and anything that threatens it, no matter how beautiful, charming, or familiar, gets removed without drama. Because healed people don't need chaos to feel important. They don't need attention to feel worthy. They don't need a ring to validate their identity. They walk in quiet power. They choose with depth. They love with eyes wide open. And their lives, they reflect it. You can see it in the way they pause before responding, in the way they laugh without fear, in the way they rest without guilt, because they've stopped living on emotional credit. They've stopped borrowing peace from temporary highs. They've stopped chasing validation from people too empty to offer it. They've become their own source, and that's what makes them magnetic, not the clothes they wear, not the words they say, but the frequency they operate from. That grounded, healed, spiritually tuned frequency that says, I know who I am and I won't shrink for anyone. You don't beg from that space. You don't settle from that space. You don't repeat history from that space, because you've buried who you used to be, and now you're walking in who you were always meant to become, and it feels different. Love starts to feel like a warm, sturdy home, not a battlefield. Work starts to feel like purpose, not punishment. Rest starts to feel like restoration, not guilt, because when you heal, every area of your life benefits. Your voice deepens, your vision sharpens, your spirit expands, and you stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to love big, to show up boldly, to dream without apology. You realize the wait is over, because you're not waiting for them. You were waiting for you, the version of you that no longer looks for signs, because the pattern is enough, the version that doesn't chase closure, because clarity already came, the version that no longer argues with confusion, it simply exits the room. That's the you who attracts what's meant for them, not because they worked harder, but because they worked inward. They cleared the clutter, they healed the wound, they stopped outsourcing their work. And once that happens, you no longer seek love to feel alive. Love finds you because you are alive, radiant, whole, ready, not just to receive, but to recognize. Because sometimes what's meant for you was always there. You just couldn't see it through the fog of your own unhealed vision. But now the fog is gone, and what's coming will not require you to lose yourself. It will remind you who you are. What's coming will not need fixing. It will flow. What's coming will not feel like tension. It will feel like home, and you'll look back not with regret, but with reverence, not with bitterness, but with wisdom, because every heartbreak became a teacher, every silence became a sanctuary, every closed door redirected you to something divine. That's the beauty of the journey. You stop resenting the process. You start honoring the transformation, because now you see clearly nothing was wasted, not one tear, not one delay, not one disappointment. It all led here to this moment, this awareness, this freedom. And when you choose from this place of wholeness, you don't just build a better love story, you build a better life, the kind of life where peace isn't rare, where joy doesn't feel borrowed, where every choice is an affirmation that says, I am healed, I am ready, I am home,